Calling criminal case 16-1-0133, State of Hawaii versus Steven Capobianco. Jury trial.
Good morning. The record will reflect the presence of counsel for the parties. The defendant is present. The jury is present. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Good morning.
And ladies and gentlemen, as you might recall, we had another witness on the witness stand, and
maybe your voice should place this on the record.
if there's a dispute here, otherwise, why don't we just proceed?
We'll defer.
You're calling a witness out of order.
Yes, Your Honor.
So-
No dispute.
All right, then let's just, why don't you call that witness? Ladies and gentlemen, we'll have a witness called out of order. If you're note taking, just note that down. And then we'll go back to Mr. Earls later. All right, thank
And
you.
this will be Ms. Jones' witness.
All right, okay. You may call your witness.
Yes. Good morning. This time the state calls Patricia Gagna to the stand.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may proceed with your examination of the witness.
Good morning. Good morning. Would you please state your full name and spell your last name?
My name is Patricia E. Gagna, G-A-G-N-E,
Good morning, Ms. Gagna. Where are you employed?
Mana Foods,
And where is Mana Foods?
49 Baldwin Avenue, Paia.
Is that here on Maui?
It is.
What is your position at Mana Foods?
I'm the general manager,
How long have you worked there?
24 years.
And as the general manager, will you just briefly summarize your duties as the general manager of Mana Foods?
Well, they're various and changing, but I oversee most of the employees, and I work on the day-to-day operations, especially as it pertains to the front of the store, the retail customer service end. I do have special attention to the bakery as one of my extra duties, and I pretty much do everything, pretty much anything and everything that needs done except actually baking or cooking.
And why is it that you have special attention to the bakery department?
It's always been kind of a passion of mine, and the owners have various people who oversee areas that they particularly enjoy. So I have always been part of the bakery oversight.
I'm going to turn your attention to February of 2014. At that time, were you employed at Mana Foods?
Yes,
And what was your position during February of 2014?
general manager.
Can you give us an idea about how long you've been the general manager?
About 18 years.
And as part of your duties of general manager, do you oversee the employee time cards?
Most of them. There are a few where the department heads do their own, but I oversee all the cashiers, the bakery, the kitchen, the cleaners, and certain stock areas.
And during February of 2014, did you have an employee by the name of Steven Capobianco?
Yes,
And if you would see him again, would you recognize him?
yes.
If he's here, will you point to him and describe an article of clothing for us?
He's to my right, and he's wearing a blue shirt.
You already made the record reflect Ms. Gagna has identified the defendant.
The record will so reflect.
And where was Steven Capobianco, the defendant we've just identified here today, working in February of 2014?
The bakery.
May I have what's been marked for identification as states 392, please? Thank you. May I approach Ms. Gagna?
Yes.
Ms. Gagna, I'm showing you what's been marked for identification as states 392. Will you open the envelope and let us know if you recognize what's inside?
Yes, it's a timesheet.
Did you have the opportunity to review that timesheet prior to your testimony?
Yes,
And does it relate to a specific employee?
yes, to Steven Capobianco.
And in terms of its time period, does it relate also to a specific time period?
Yes,
And the time period is?
Monday, February 3rd to Sunday, February 16th of 2014.
And prior to today, when was the last time you saw this sheet of paper that you're holding now?
This actual sheet?
Yes.
When I gave it to the, I think it was a detective.
And do you remember the date on that?
Well, it's printed out on the 28th of February
Of what year?
of 2014.
Right. Is it a true and accurate representation of the time card that's kept at your business?
Yes.
Are those time cards kept in a regular course of business?
Yes.
And are you, as the general manager, a person with knowledge of those records having been kept by Mana Foods?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, you can put the sheet back in there. And does that time card appear to be altered in any way, or does it appear as you gave it to the police officer in February of 2014?
It's the same as the one I gave to the police officer.
Now, are these time card records relied on for any specific purpose?
For payment, for services rendered.
How does an employee, I guess, clock in and clock out to create this record that we're talking about in states 392 for identification?
Well, each employee has an employee number, and they punch that into our time clock, and then they either enter it as an in or an out. And so all day long, they're going in or out.
And what is the policy regarding clocking in and clocking out?
That you are the only person to clock in and out for yourself, and if there are any omissions or changes, they're reported to the bookkeeper, and either the bookkeeper or myself, depending on what area of the store the person works in. We can make changes. Generally what we're doing is we're either changing it from an in to an out. People will punch and not realize that they're punching in, and that'll show up on our computers in out of order. And so in order for all the time to be recorded correctly, we'll change it from an in or an out. If they forget to clock back in from a break, or forget to clock out for a break and clock back in, we'll consult with them if they haven't left us a note to add that time in so that they get paid properly.
And then based upon the total number of hours reported in a time period for this sheet, what happens?
Then they're issued a paycheck a week later, approximately, not quite a week later. So it's processed through a payroll service, and we just submit the hours to that service. They provide the checks.
Now, in terms of your in 2014, in terms of your employee parking, did you have at that time an area up the street from Mana Foods where your employees were asked to park?
Correct. We still have that.
Will you describe to us where that is and how far that is from the Mana Foods?
Well, it's probably approximately 1.5 blocks up Baldwin. It's on the same side of the street as the post office, and it is directly below the post office. It's a gravel lot that we lease.
And when a person comes to work, what's your protocol on when they clock in upon arriving into Mana Foods?
Well, depending on when they're scheduled to work, they're not supposed to clock in prior to their schedule, or within 5 minutes is all right. And then they come in through the door that we call the outdoor. It's the only door open. They come through that door into the time clock area, which is toward the rear of the store, and clock in there.
You know, at this time, the state offers into evidence what's been marked for identification as C392.
No objection.
State's Exhibit 392, so marked for identification purposes, is received in evidence.
Okay. All right, you're under permission to publish.
Granted.
I'm showing you Ms. Gagne, what's been admitted as states 392 in evidence, and I'm just rolling it up so it's a little bit easier to to read. This is the timesheet that we've been talking about, is that right?
Correct.
For the time period of Monday, February 3rd, one moment, to Sunday, February 16th of 2014, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. On this time card, does it show days off?
Yes, the blanks Wednesday and Thursday are the days off.
So that will be what days?
The 5th and the 6th, and the 12th and the 13th, in that time frame.
Now, in regards to February 8th, will you tell us what time the defendant clocked in?
It looks like it's 7:06. I'm not
Oh,
Not
maybe I
positive.
can blow it up for you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's make it so.
Yeah, 7:06.
AM?
Yes, AM.
And then what time's the clock out?
It's in what we call marine time, 14:34, which is 2:34.
Okay, and on Sunday, the 9th?
He came in at 6:53, went out for a break at 12-ish, back in about a half an hour later, and left at what is almost 4 o'clock, 15:52, 3:52.
All right, and then the 10th, Monday?
6:56, out for a break at 10:41, back in at 11:13, and again out at 3:21.
Okay, let's turn to February 11th, Tuesday, February 11th of 2014. Will you tell us what time you clocked in?
6:57, then for a break he went out at 9:32, back in at 10, out at 1:06, back in at 1:31, and out at 2:53.
Now, and then off Wednesday?
Then off on Wednesday and Thursday.
And Friday?
He came in at 6:59 and left at 7:02. I don't know the circumstance of that.
Okay, but there's no further clock?
No. So apparently he left almost immediately after arriving.
All right, and then looking at Saturday the 16th?
Saturday the 15th?
I'm sorry, Saturday the 15th?
Yeah, it didn't work.
And Sunday the 16th?
Did not work.
Okay. But the 8th and the 9th, that Saturday and Sunday were work days?
Correct.
Now, in regards to clocking in and clocking out, you were talking about a code. Is that code preceded by a fingerprint scanner or anything to
No.
verify that it's actually the person rather than the code being clocked in and out?
No, there's no. We're not that high tech.
So there are times that you, like you were saying, if somebody forgot to clock out and you were reconciling their hours for pay, that you could actually either respond to a note that was left by them or a verbal request to amend their time card.
Correct.
Will you explain that?
Well, when we look at, on the computer, when we look at someone's timesheets, if there's something missing, then the timesheet's not accurate, and we're trying very carefully to pay them properly. So if someone forgets to clock out for a break, but they clock back in, or they forget to clock out at the end of the day, there's a missing punch. And at the bottom of that day, there'll be a little error code. It's usually a 9. And we go and look in our little time card mailbox to see if anybody's left notes, or if they've given us a note saying something happened. Sometimes they don't realize it, that they haven't clocked in or out, or whatever the circumstance. So I will make every effort to call them on the phone or go down to their work area and say, hey, on such and such a date you didn't remember to clock out. And they'll either tell me, oh yeah, okay, that day I clocked out at 3 o'clock, or I clocked out at the same time as their coworker, something like that. So I can go back and look at the coworker's time and enter the time if necessary.
And in regards to looking at this time sheet, you were talking about clocking in within about 5 minutes of your scheduled work time.
Mhm.
Looking at this time card, can you tell us what the regular shift was that the defendant had during this week of February of 2014?
Can you blow it up a little bit for me
Sure.
again?
Is that better?
Well, it looks like it could be anywhere from 6:30 to 7 o'clock, but it depends on the person who's in charge of the department, and also the side of the, in this case, the side of the bakery that someone works on. Some sides come in a little earlier than others because there's more prep involved. I believe at this point, it looks like we could come in somewhere before 6:30. I don't know if there's any earlier than that. So I'm not really sure, since I'm only looking at this time card, if we were opening at 6 in the back of the house, as you would call it, the people that have to prep for the store to open. We started opening at 6 o'clock, and I don't remember exactly when, because luckily I don't have to open at 6. But there may be people that came in at 6, and in this particular section might not need to be there until between 6:30 and 7, and they generally come in depending on what their responsibilities are, and they know what it takes to get it done before we start opening the store, and if they're impacted by that. Sometimes they're not impacted by the store opening at 8, so they maybe come in a little bit later.
No, I'll object as a speculative.
Inasmuch as it was provided as an example of how they manage their shifts, I'll overrule the objection.
Thank you. Now, if looking at the accumulated hours below, and you see the numbers that are ranging from basically a little over 6 hours to about 8.5, what does that represent?
I'm not quite sure what you mean by
Oh,
that.
under the accumulated, where it says accumulated hours,
Uh-huh.
what are we looking at in this section?
Oh, that's the total hours that day that the person worked, minus the breaks.
Is that a regular shift length?
It can be. They really do change depending on what's to be done that day. So it's baking being what it is. It's not necessarily an 8-hour shift. It might be a 6-hour shift one day and a 9-hour shift another day, depending on what's got to be finished before a person can leave, and whether or not somebody had a coworker with them that day.
Okay. Now, so you're saying these entries are guided in terms of the input by a code only, is that right?
At the time clock, yes.
Yes. Thank you. I don't have any questions for you at this time.
Cross-examination, Mr. Hall.
May I approach the witness with what I have marked and identified as Defense Exhibit I? State has a copy.
Yes.
Ms. Kanya, if you could take a look at that, and if you could, I guess after you've reviewed it, do you recognize what that is?
Yes, it's a time card from October of 2013.
Okay, and I guess in the same capacity that you testified in relative to the admission of the other time card, I guess let me establish that. Were you essentially the custodian of these time cards and records?
Well, I'm the custodian on the computer.
And I guess in terms of what you have up there, is that a fair and accurate copy of what would be the time card for Steven Capobianco for the week, or the time period between October 14th of 2013 and October 27th of 2013?
Yes.
Is that record kept in the regular course of business at Maui Foods?
I believe so. I don't actually have, I don't have custody of the paper records. They're in the bookkeeper's custody.
And I know you did not make that particular copy, but for purposes of taking care of it today, does that appear to be altered or, I guess, distorted in any way?
It was, no, there are additions to it, but they were made on the computer, quite likely by me, to close out a day when he didn't clock out. There are a couple of places where there's asterisk,
Okay, I guess we can come back and talk about that after.
but otherwise not altered.
Okay, and in terms of what you referred to as your, what was very likely your corrections and amendments to that document, does that appear to be fair and accurate as well?
It does.
I guess I would be moving what is marked as Defense Exhibit I into evidence.
Ms. Jones,
Briefly here.
proceed.
Does this time card, like what's been admitted into evidence that states 392, have a printout date on it?
It does.
And what is that?
March 3rd of 2016.
And do you remember printing this out yourself?
I did not.
You didn't do it.
No.
Do you know how it came to be here today?
I don't.
Did you verify or check this against the records on file at Mana Foods?
I didn't, but
Well, I guess you're on my approach.
Yes. recess at this point. Thank you.
It's in recess.